It's extremely calm here in Diepsloot, north of Johannesburg. Just a few moments ago, one of my other colleagues, Herbert Memela, who's been monitoring the other side of Diepsloot, tells me that there has been a huge police convoy that has been brought in here to Diepsloot. I'm not yet sure at this stage exactly who that is, because we know that the police minister, General Begicele, is expected in Diepsloot tomorrow. He was here yesterday to hear the concerns of the community. We're expecting him to return with some of the way forward about how police are going to intervene in terms of some of the challenges that were raised by the community here yesterday. Issues of a lack of police visibility in this area, which is said to be extremely highly crime-ridden. And you would know that locals, what started this was that locals are accusing the foreign nationals of being behind the escalating crime rate in this particular area. But very devastating here at the home of who we now know to be Elvis Nyati, is the man who has passed away, who was dragged here from his home in the early hours of this morning, we understand, where he was then pelted with stones, we believe, and then was set alight. Just here behind me, more family members of Elvis Nyati have arrived here beside themselves, not able to contain their emotions, in disbelief of what has taken place in the early hours of this morning. More family members arriving here, quite emotional, in shock over what has taken place. Police tell us that no one has yet been arrested for the murder of Elvis Nyati. What we do know is that the mob had arrived here at his home shortly after 10 o'clock, because his wife describes the program that they were watching on television at the time, and says the house was ransacked, monies were asked for from them. They were also asked about some of the appliances in their houses, about where they got them from. And this is where the widow now of Elvis Nyati tells us that they asked for 300 rand. She said she does not. They then subsequently asked about a firearm, and she said she does not know about any firearm that is in her house, and further went on to describe that the appliances that she has in her house were given to her by her employer. So she then says they left with Elvis from here, and that was the last time then that she saw her husband. We also learn that one of the other residents that also stays here in this particular yard is now in hospital. We understand that he has been badly beaten up. We don't know further what the status of one of those who has been injured is, but we have heard from his uncle that he is not in a good condition. We will hear from police perhaps a bit later on, if we do get a report from police on what the latest is, how many more police have been deployed to this area, and the tally of those that have been injured in what we understand was the overnight violence that took place here. And police have also, as you indicated in your intro, Simpiwe, have been here in Diepsloot to take statements from some of the witnesses. As I indicated a bit earlier on, we did not record most of that because obviously we wouldn't want to jeopardize the investigation, in particular of those who will share that sensitive information with the South African Police Service. But just here behind me is where family members, as well as the widow of Elvis Nyati, are. And I guess they're going to have to plan a way forward now. But questions also being raised, of course, with the mob, which we understand came to this particular yard shouting, "Where are your passports?" I guess a greater conversation can be had at a later stage. I do understand that my colleague Sophie Mukwena, who was speaking to Minister Naledi Pandor of International Relations a bit earlier on, she had also alluded to some of the aspects in particular of this incident that took place here. I'm not quite sure what she did say as I'm out here on the ground at the moment. I'm sure you're going to have that on the channel if you already haven't had that yet. But certainly a sense of really calm here in Diepsloot, but unfortunate incident that has taken place overnight. Many of the residents here just sitting on the side of the road, many of those that we managed to speak to as well, who in the early hours of those morning were woken up by loud chanting, are telling us that some of them were even called by police to come and identify the man at the time whom they did not know was lying there, who we know now is Elvis Nyati, indicating that police had called them to identify the man that had been lying there, his lifeless body, had been lying there. So an unfortunate turn of events in this particular incident, and concern, of course, that while there are concerns that have been raised by locals about some of the socio-economic challenges that they're facing in these areas, certainly there would need to be seen to be those who are going to try and solve the situation, whether the presence of the police minister, Chriselda, will be back in this area tomorrow. Whatever he will need to say, I guess would need to quell whatever tensions there are here in Diepsloot, because as I've been indicating since the very beginning, this is not the first time that we're in Diepsloot to highlight some of the socio-economic conditions that have been raised by communities. So what you're seeing now is that, I guess, with the scarcity of jobs, with the socio-economic conditions, lack of housing, and what we've long highlighted here in Diepsloot as challenges that would need a multidisciplinary government committee, I guess, if I could say that, to deal with the issues here in Diepsloot. You're going to see a reoccurrence of what we are now witnessing, where there had been fears initially that what has been taking place and the concerns that have been raised in these communities will ultimately lead to the loss of life. And unfortunately, that's where we are at this particular stage. And I must indicate, just monitoring my Twitter timeline, as well as some of my other social media, there certainly seems to be a discussion that's being had amongst South Africans as well as foreign nationals, fingers being pointed at each other, not forgetting as well that what brought us here is we do believe 7 people who were killed, we believe, over the weekend, being the tally then of people who were killed in this area. So the locals indicating that foreign nationals may have been behind the escalating violence in this particular area. So that is what is taking place here at this time. While the situation is extremely calm, residents are concerned that if the issues here in Diepsloot are not addressed, they might see a resurgence of violence. Simpiwe, back to you in studio for now.